and welcome to WED Talks, a monthly 1 hour masterclass on trending workplace topics. I'm Jessica Peterson, Operations Manager at the PA Career Link Bucks County. Thank you for attending this webinar hosted by the Bucks County Department of Workforce and Economic Development, known as WED, and PA Career Link. Before we begin today's presentation, I'd like to introduce the Executive Director of WED, Billy Barnes.
Thank you for the introduction, Jessica. Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the Bucks County Workforce Development Board, I want to welcome everyone to WED Talks. Our WED Talk presenters are here to share essential branding and communication strategies and take your marketing questions live. They will provide a checklist of top marketing priorities that may validate your work while providing an aha moment for you to move forward. Let's introduce our experts who will lead today's discussion. Back to you, Jess.
Thanks, Billy. I'm pleased to introduce our WED Talk experts from NouSoma Communications, an award-winning agency serving Bucks, Chester County, Delco, and Philly businesses for over 25 years. With over 30 years of experience in the marketing communications industry, NouSoma President Ellen Langas has successfully developed and managed public relations, advertising, media training, sales, and marketing campaigns for national and regional clients. Before founding NouSoma in 1995, Ellen was the executive leadership team of billion-dollar QVC Incorporated, where she established the public relations department and gained national visibility as a popular on-air host and consumer spokesperson. NouSoma Vice President Kristen Stewart interacts daily with clients to create dynamic communication campaigns, specializing in targeted message development, engaging presentations on all marketing platforms, high-impact media appearances, and brand rollouts. With 15 years of experience at the biggest names in the broadcast industry, including CNN, CBS, NBC, and its parent company Comcast, Kristen's insight, experience, and trusted network of media contacts result in compelling media pitches, enduring media relationships, and creating content that engages consumers. Welcome to WED Talks, Ellen and Kristen.
Thanks, Jessica, and thank you, Billy, and thank you very much to the Bucks County Workforce Economic Development Department and PA Career Link Bucks County for hosting this event. We're really pleased to be here. I want to remind everyone, if you want to make sure to mute while we're doing the presentation to make it the best possible presentation. As Jessica said, I'm Ellen Langas. I'm the founder and president of NouSoma Communications, full service marketing, public relations, and branding. And my colleague, Kristen. You want to wave real quick, Kristen?
Good morning. It's great to see you all today.
So since 1995, we've been developing and executing marketing strategies for individuals, for small businesses, corporations, and nonprofits. And while our clients differ in many, many ways, one thing that's been a constant throughout the decades is change. To be effective in business, you have to anticipate change and stay ahead of the curve. And that certainly applies to your marketing strategy. Your customers will expect it, and your competitors are going to be at your heels. And we know it's not easy when you don't have deep resources. So the strategies that we're going to review today can all be adopted and implemented internally, or you can outsource them with a reasonable budget. And while they won't apply to every business, we trust that you're going to find many ideas that do. We're going to take a couple short breaks during the presentation so we can answer any questions you have. So please feel free to send them in via chat, which is being monitored. And, please feel free to break in at any time with a question. So that's our story. And now it's time for us to help you tell your story. So I'm going to share some slides that are going to help us move this along then. Alrighty. So the first thing to get started with is, what is your mission? I know you've all written your mission statements, and I'm going to bet that's not the case, but executing a successful marketing strategy really does take, does take planning. It's imperative that your marketing efforts are in sync with your company's goals. So a good place to start is by visiting your mission statement or consider writing one now. Let's go down to the bottom of this and take a look at these two example mission statements. To accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. Great. To connect the world's professionals to make them more productive and successful. And if you think you know which corporations those are because they are well known, please feel free to send that over in the chat. A mission statement is going to inform all of the other marketing messaging on all of your marketing platforms. And if you'll notice in these two, they use action-based words to accelerate, to connect. These are going to serve as a guide for your operation as well as internally for your employees so that you're all focused on one goal. And you want to be very concise. I don't know if anyone figured it out, but to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy is Tesla. And to connect the world's professionals is LinkedIn. All right, so once you've got your mission, let's also take a look at a vision statement. A vision statement describes what your company aspires to be. And here are some examples. To make people happy. That's Disney, the happiest place on earth. To provide access to the world's information in one click. Very aspirational, right? It's Google. So with your mission and vision statement in hand, it's time to make a plan. And Abe Lincoln, well, so they say, was very famous for saying, give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I'll spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. You get the idea. That's the whole idea behind your marketing plan. So many businesses, not just the new ones, the established ones too, will get so excited about a new marketing idea that they hear, or someone will give them an idea, whether it's the leader of the team or one of your employees, and everyone gets behind it. But you really have to take time to pause because marketing should be strategized, not randomly pursued. So what we'd love you to do is create a list of your marketing goals, and then create them into tasks and prioritize them. Then you can create a year-long calendar and have time frames for each event. Now you might do it by the month or you might do it by the quarter, but the idea is to be able to keep the momentum going because you have this plan and you know when things will happen, and it also helps you figure out how much money do you have for the year to spend on your marketing ideas. Then review them month to month because these aren't cast in stone. This is going to be dynamic. Things will change up, and it gives you a chance to monitor progress. And it feels good when you check one off. So you're going to set your goals, but make sure to apply a measurement for each one of these. You want to be able to measure your progress. So maybe it's your social media. Don't just do it. Check month to month. How am I doing? Am I increasing followers? If you're not, you change up your plan a little bit. If you're going to spend money on an advertisement, set a goal. I want 3 new customers for this or 3 new prospects from this. You get the idea. Measure, measure, measure. Alrighty. So next, it's important to identify your target market. You can do all the marketing in the world, but if it's going to the wrong ears, it's not going to impact your business. You need to know the audience that you want to reach. So consider your customer or your potential customers and just think about what is your customer's mindset? How are you going to support it? So for instance, is your market a parent or is it busy individuals who might need meals on the go? Are they sports fans? Or are they small businesses? Then sort of decide, what does that demographic look like? What's motivating them at this point in their lives? Now, COVID transformed the way people do business. So think about how they're shopping now, and you know a lot of it is online. Are they working at home or have they gone back to the office? Are they still afraid of their health or concerned about their health and safety? Do they expect delivery? I'd say the answer is yes. And think even, how are they entertaining? How are they now socializing? All these things have changed and they keep changing. So stay ahead of the curve. And you should then be able to picture your client or your customer and know how to support their needs. Next, do people understand what you do? Sounds silly, but how many times have you gone to a website, even of a large corporation, and you're like, I don't get it. There's a lot of words, philosophy. We really encourage you, especially on your website, to make sure you have stated in plain conversational language what you do. And not just what you do, but how is it impacting the customer? You have to sort of change around your perspective and think, what's in it for the customer, not what's in it for the business. I mean, we all have that in the back of our mind, but we need to know what's in it for the customer. They have to feel connected. So make sure that people understand what you do and what's in it for them. With that in mind, we recommend that you come up and write down 2 to 3 key messages that are going to be intertwined with everything you do from a marketing standpoint. You might consider these 3 questions and answer them. What do you do? Why are you doing it? And what niche are you fulfilling? What is it in it for that customer? The reason you're doing that is because you need to have a consistent message, whether it's on social media, whether it's on your website, even in your sales presentations, and that's going to keep you focused on what your goals are. All right, now that you know who you're after, how are you going to find them? Your job is to meet people where they are, get that message, the right message to the right person on the right platform. So, who is your audience? What outlets do they trust for reliable information? And it varies widely by age, but just by demographic. It could be that they're on social media, but social media has so many different platforms. Where's your market on? We recommend creating a spreadsheet. The reason it's a spreadsheet is because this is, again, going to be dynamic. As you come up with new outlets, new people that you're meeting, you're going to add to this. And it's going to serve as your Bible when it comes down to getting a marketing message out. On it, you might include reporters and editors. You'll meet maybe a TV producer, a columnist. You want to make sure to keep them and have them at the ready when you send out a press release. If you're going to have an event, you're going to want to get it on some of the calendar notices, like Patch or Eventsy. So you want to keep those listings, how you contact them. Maybe it's their website where you fill in a form, put that on this list too. So it's at your fingertips when you have an event. Social media, you already know the platforms, but there are going to be certain people, certain influencers that you always want to make sure to get your information out to because they can be the best form of third-party recommendation. And then niche publications, especially if you're business to business, you're going to want to get out to the trade publications. And a quick tip we've put here, if you're pitching a story idea to a particular reporter, make sure to read their columns so you know what they're looking for. Get to know them. So there's your contact list. And then next is you want to make sure to be consistent. And that means all through everything you're going to be doing for your marketing, your public relations, consistency across all formats. This is what we're going to be looking at today. Your website, any of your collateral materials, signage, handouts, sales tools, all your collateral, your e-blasts, your e-newsletters, your communications on digital, social media platforms, any kind of media outreach or editorial, advertising, even your awards, all of that consistent messaging. It sort of makes it easy when you think, oh, I only have to keep those 3 key messages throughout my marketing platforms. Here's a good time to just check in with Diana if we have any questions or if we should continue moving along. I don't think I saw any coming in.
You're good to go, Ellen.
Okay, thank you. So as we move forward, Kristen's going to be talking about public relations, everything that goes into it. And when we say the word public relations, that's all the activities that are influencing people to be disposed to a company, organization, a product, a service. How are you going to enhance things positively with your advertising, your promotions, your events, your sponsorships? So that's the big overview. We have separated out into a category, media relations, which I'll cover at the end. And that's a little bit more focused. That's developing the relationships with reporters or TV producers, radio, and the media outlets that are going to target the audiences who are looking for those specific outlets to get their reliable information from. So let me go ahead and turn this over to Kristen. And the first thing we're going to talk about refreshing websites. And Kristen, what's the first thing you hear from a lot of people when you say, should we look at your website?
But we just did that. Can everybody hear me? Can you give me a thumbs up if you're with me? Thank you. Yeah, every time I'm telling you, it's like when kids say they just brushed their teeth. It's like, well, did you do it today? And with websites, it's similar. People feel like they just did that because it's such an endeavor, right? But if you think about it hard, it might have been a couple of years, even a year ago. You really want to be looking at your website at least once a year to make sure if you've changed tracks or you've changed messaging, that first message that's popping up on your website is what's there. So think of your website as your billboard, right? People are driving past, they have 2 seconds. What do? That's what Ellen was referring to. That is the first thing we should see, and it should be clear on there. So on NouSoma's website, ours is, it's time to tell your story. That's what we do. We help you tell your story. And then right below that, we have our 4 main services that we do, marketing, branding, PR, etc. So think of your website that way. If it looks outdated, you do too. Sometimes it's hard to tell if your own website is outdated. It's sort of like clothing as you get older. You can't really figure out if you're still in style and what style you should be because you shouldn't look like a teenager anymore. So as this is a good time to talk to your friends, your customers, your family and say, can you look at my website? What do you see in there? You'll hear all kinds of stuff and some of it you might not really want to pursue, but you'll get some major themes there and that'll help guide you. Intuitive navigation. Your website is not the time to be creative with navigation. And so what we mean by intuitive navigation is the stuff that you do whenever you go on a website. There's a certain process you expect when you shop somewhere, right? Or if you buy an airplane ticket, which has gotten crazy. Even if you're signing up for a newsletter, you expect a certain process. Don't get creative with your website. Let your people follow that process in as few clicks as possible. And that includes your menu bar up top, your About Us, your products, your shop. Put them in the same order as everyone else is doing. That's not where you need to be creative. Your messaging is really where you want to focus that. Take a look at your bios and your contact, especially for small to mid-sized local businesses. A lot of you have customers and clients who come to your business because they feel connected personally to you, not so much with big corporations, but with the smaller businesses, that's a big deal. So you want to make sure your bios and contact information are up to date and personal. Images and video, if you do nothing else, update those images, update that video. Your video doesn't have to be complicated. It might be professionally done. It might be a 1-minute montage. These days, you can really hire a video professional to make you a 1-minute montage of your products and your business for very little money, because the next generation of marketers in their 20s and 30s, they all know how to video edit, shoot at a much more reasonable price than it used to be. So if it's been a while since you've visited video because it seemed expensive 5 years ago, I encourage you to revisit it again. Accessibility on your website. This has become a big deal in the last few years. The Americans with Disabilities Act, requires that we all have accessible services for those with disabilities. That includes your website. There are a bunch of guidelines that are online if you look up ADA compliance for websites. These change as the web changes, but some of the major ones are making sure your photos have alt text so that if someone cannot see an image, when they hover over it, they can hear through text what that image is. Another major one is if you have wording over imagery, the contrast between the wording and the imagery should be at a certain level so that if someone has visual issues, they can see that contrast. This is a big deal on many levels. One is that you want to be a good business corporate citizen. The other is that you do leave yourself vulnerable to not only complaints, but possible lawsuits if you haven't shown an effort to be ADA compliant. So that's something you really do want to take seriously and look at. And finally, make sure you conform to all platforms. And if it's been a few years since you've visited your website, you'll know this. Check it out on your cell phone if you haven't lately. Look at it on your iPad or tablet. Look at it on your desktop. Ellen, I'm ready for the next slide. Thank you. E-newsletters and e-blast. I'm thinking a lot of you have this going on, but if you don't, a reminder, there are multiple platforms out there where you can distribute information about your products and services, and it doesn't have to be a blind copy that you do in Outlook. You really do want to choose a service for this, and they're not all expensive. For instance, MailChimp let you do a certain number of contacts for free. And it's a good amount, especially for a small business. So you might want to start there. Constant Contact really has a little bit more of a vast resources and ability to load more contacts. What do these services do for you that you can't be doing in Outlook? Well, one is that they provide great templates for your emails and eBlast. And you want your brand, just like your website, to look consistent on your emails and eBlast. So you can go on to Constant Contact or MailChimp and really look at those. You have so many complicated things going on with your business. This shouldn't be one of them. There are really great and clean and simple templates that you can make your own by adding your logo and your imagery. The other things that Constant Contact and MailChimp do for you is allow you to load your contacts easily as you collect them. And over the years, this is going to grow. You're going to get it from different places. You really do want to have that all organized in one place, as well as the ability to see who's opening those emails. You know, you'll get those stats on what demographics they're in. It will help you with your messaging on not only email, but your website, your social media, everything. Make sure you add beautiful photos for appeal. Content from you, personalizing it is really the number one thing people want to see. If you're running a shop and it's fall and you're telling people about all the new stuff that you have that's come in and why you're excited about it, that's more appealing than just a canned email, right? That comes from a national chain. This is where you can really glow. You might offer resources to folks who are reading your emails, depending on what you're doing. For instance, if you're an attorney specializing in family law, you might share an article that shows how social media can really affect the outcomes of a divorce proceeding. You might want to include special promotions if you're doing 20% off or a happy hour this Friday. Spotlighting a team member is always popular. People just love to see other people being praised. It's not just on social, it's everywhere. And then any outreach you're doing in your community. You know, if you go to a local event, even if it's just you and your kid that weekend, right? Take a picture and share that with your community. They will appreciate that. eBlast refresh. Okay, what's the difference? We're looking at an image of an e-newsletter, which is really a deeper dive. It might give a ton of news on different topics. An eBlast is really something that lights people up. If you've got 50% off going on, Black Friday or Small Business Saturday, that's an eBlast. All it says is 50% off. Come on in. Here are our hours. Here's what we have. Boom, it's off, and people can enjoy it and take advantage of it. What you want to do, though, with these is be sparing. If you're putting out an urgent e-blast every week, it no longer feels urgent to anybody. So really, you want to be picky with these, and you'll find that your open rates are sometimes higher on these than for an extensive e-newsletter. Social media and digital communications goals. This is a big one and really could be a couple of classes in and of itself. We'll try to hit some highlights today. The images that you're showing on your social media platforms, your banner at the top of your Facebook page or your profile picture on Instagram should be reflective of your website and everything else you're doing. It shouldn't be a completely different thing. You're probably a small to mid-sized business. Maybe people don't know your brand. This is an opportunity to keep reinforcing it. So really make sure your imagery is consistent with how your website and your other materials look. Update those banners seasonally if you want to give it, a nice new look if you've got that sort of business that engages people seasonally. Make sure those hours of operation are up to date. Honestly, if you do nothing else, just do that. If your hours of operation are wrong on your social media, people will never come back to you. They get so upset. Provide more search engine content through your social media. And that means that these days used to be stuff that was on your website or that might appear in a local publication would pop up first on Google when people looked for you. Now it might be your Facebook or your LinkedIn post that pops up for people when they Google search you. So make sure that every post you're doing is reflective of your brand and something you can be proud of, because you never know what that first item might be. Compelling images and video always do best. Even if it's a short, 10-second video panning your manufacturing shop floor and showing people hard at work today on whatever project, that will always do well. The best posts, though, which might surprise some of you, involve community outreach, personal announcements, or awards. And these can be the toughest because people don't like to look like they're praising themselves. But you'll find that your social media audience is incredibly proud of you when you go to a local park cleanup event, when you go to maybe a food kitchen close to the holidays, when you donate a check to your local SPCA, when you promote someone who might have come in on entry level and is now working their way up the chain. Those posts do the absolute best on social media. 411 is something we don't depend on quite as much anymore, but is a great starting point for you if you're totally lost about social media. And what 411 means is that for every 4 interactive posts you do one post that's directly about your company and one that's promotional. And that is to ensure that you're not talking about how great you are all the time, right? Your customer wants to know how they can benefit. So if you're giving them 4 posts that benefit them in some way, and then sprinkling it every now and then with one about your company or a promotion, that's really how you can engage people. A recent national survey showed that people are just sick of irrelevant social media posts. And what irrelevance means to your client or customer or user is, gosh, this doesn't affect me in any way. So think about that 411 rule and focusing on your customer with your social media. Boosting is still an excellent way to reach people, and that is you've got your following, or maybe you don't, and you need to get beyond them. Especially for local business, this is really beneficial. On Facebook for $40, you might be able to target a 30-mile radius around your business of, moms who are interested in books, bags, and school stuff and after-school activities. And there you are for your particular business that might cater to that audience. So Facebook has gotten a little more expensive with boosting posts, but it's certainly something that's still accessible to you, and we highly encourage for local businesses who are really reaching a local audience. Measure, tweak, measure. It's not really fun, but it is totally necessary. Week by week or month by month, look at your social media posts and see which ones did best, and then do more of them. And that way you can multiply your results. All right, where to have a presence. This is a big one. And when you go back to watch the recording on this, I would go to this slide if I were you and take a couple of minutes with it. Here are some of the major social media platforms. We've broken it down by users, what age they are, who these people are who follow it. This changes, of course. But what we recommend for most businesses, because it can take your whole life, frankly, to be on top of all social media, is to choose 1 or 2 platforms where your audience is. So if you run a bed and breakfast that's very high end, and most of the people who visit you might be 50 and older, semi-retired or retired, Facebook might be the best place for you, right? Isn't that a great audience for that, where people are sharing, thoughts about their grandkids and what they're doing this weekend? Instagram might be another place where you would go for that audience, not because the older crowd is necessarily there, but if you own a bed and breakfast, it might be highly visual with what you're serving that evening, the beautiful rooms, how nice the garden looks. So you really want to choose 2 social media platforms to focus on to start. And these can change later, but that's where we recommend you focus. And then in addition to that, if you can possibly swing it, get yourself on LinkedIn. That just presents you in a different light. And your business and professional colleagues who maybe hadn't even thought of you in years or didn't know what you were up to might connect with you if you're able to share that new business. And TikTok, oh goodness, if you know someone young, have them help you out with this one. But it's definitely a way to be innovative, even if you only get on every now and then and post a little 5-second video of the cupcakes you're serving in your bake shop today. I think it's worth a try. Editorial calendar. Okay, this is key to your success. And that is for social media to stop yourself from falling down that rabbit hole where you're monitoring social media every day instead of monitoring your business. We suggest an editorial calendar, and this way your team can work on it with you. So maybe you, month to month, you decide, okay, here's how often I'm posting per week. And here's what's happening. Every Friday, I'm posting about my happy hour drink that evening. Every Wednesday, I'm posting about this weekend's promotion. You might mark on your editorial calendar events that you know are coming, so it's not last minute. You know Small Business Saturday is coming. Why is it a surprise every year? Put that on your editorial calendar. National days, we caution people with this. You want to get in on the action, but don't overdo it with the silly ones, right? People are tired of that. If there's a national day, though, in particular, even a really, really, small one that no one's heard of, but really pertains to your business, that's where you can really connect with people. So if you're a vet and there's something about Puppy Day, you got to get in on that action. Tie into local events. This can really be the best way for you to connect. And that is, if you supported a local baseball team, you're a member of your Chamber of Commerce and you went to an event, congratulate those folks and tag them on social media. You'll find those will be your biggest post. You'll be annoyed because people are liking that more than your latest promotion, but it doesn't matter. It's all about getting your brand out there. Milestones, awards, and recognition, put those up there. Praise and congratulate others. NouSoma is huge on this, not only because we're nice people and we like to praise and congratulate people, but we find that spirit of giving on social media platforms is really what drives awareness of your brand more than anything else. I guess I'm at the end of my little section here, Ellen, aren't I? We were actually talking about how we wanted to transition from those basic digital platforms to things that are a little bit more advanced. And so for the advanced stuff, I'm going to hand it back over to my boss, Ellen.
Thanks, Kristen. So we just wanted to make mention of things that we're seeing happening in the industry. It may be premature for some of you to do so, but I don't think on the first one. I think with QR codes, this is something that you might want to explore if you haven't already. I think with COVID, everybody became familiar with QR codes like that. If you wanted to eat at a restaurant, you better darn well know how to use a QR code or you're not going to get to see the menu. So that was the first introduction even I had to QR codes, but it's a whole lot more than menus now. People are using QR codes, and you'll see them all the time now in advertisements in magazines, in collateral pieces, even on business cards. And it allows you, anybody with a smartphone, which is more than 95% of the population over 18, has a smartphone, can just use the camera in their smartphone to look at the QR code, and it will instantaneously take them to a dedicated landing page where you might have all your information, or right to your website. So it's a great way not only to get a lot of information in a small area, but it's also a very sustainable thing. It's great for the environment because you're not printing all of that material that you would have needed to do. In advanced situations, and you'd have to pay for this through organizations that do this, you can actually have dynamic material come off that QR code, which changes as the season changes. So that one QR code would change over time. But that's a little advanced for now. Then geofencing, you may have already explored this. Geofencing is similar to if you were on Facebook and you wanted to get an ad like Kristen was talking about, and get a certain type of audience. Well, geofencing does it physically. It uses GPS and cellular data, when people know where you are with your phone. It uses that data and it creates a virtual boundary around a geographical area that you target. So, for instance, let's say you're in, create sports products. And there is a basketball game happening, and you decide that you're going to create a geofence around that building in which the facility in which the basketball game is. Anybody who walks into that facility or out of that facility that has a cell phone on, you're going to be able to track that. And then you're going to be able to send data, your advertisement, to that individual. It's going to pop up when they're scrolling on Facebook or when they're on the web or on the different channels that they're scrolling on. Pretty interesting, but a wonderful way to get your ad following that person and specifically to the target that you want. So just a little bit of interesting technology that's been happening that we've been working with and really find incredible. So we should stop real quick to check in with Diana if there's any other questions that have popped up. Are we good to go, Diana?
Done so far.
Okay, thank you. So now let's move away from the online platforms and talk about community relations and internal connections. It's so important, we feel, to engage with the community. And we think it's a responsibility of business owners to really support and engage in the communities in which they live and work. That sets the tone inside your company and then outside toward the community. One of the things you can do is support people who are in need. And that is what Kristen was talking about when she was talking about the social media. Perhaps it's your local food bank. But you might want to make sure that you're connecting with people who have something to do with what your vision of business is, so that there's a parallel. So for instance, let's say you're a organization that networks women together. Perhaps you want to help a girls group, Girls Inc. or Girls Start. Any of those type of things would make a natural connection with your business. Collaboration in your community is key, and it's also very helpful from a business standpoint. You might want to do some cross promotions. Let's say you have a small store and you have handmade items. Perhaps collaborate with one of the artists to do something, or a business that is similar but not competitive with you. You can do a joint advertisement, save some money on that. Connect with your local Chamber of Commerce. Chambers are fabulous with business listings. You can share your press information typically, and they'll run your press releases in their newsletters. So really great to be involved with your local chamber. And they also have great programs and speaking opportunities as well. Trade associations, very, very important as well. Share the information that you're doing, as Kristen already outlined, on social and your e-blasts. And then last but not least is your employees. So many people are outward focused. They forget to focus on your employees. It's easy when you have one or two employees. You're all talking, you all know what's happening. But as you grow, it's important to keep your employees up to date on what your company's doing. Articles and blog posts, we find that this is one of the best tools for marketing. Everybody's interested in original content, especially for social media, but on newsletters, your e-blasts, it's important to have relevant original content. You can do this in a short or a long format, short little blog posts or short for social media, longer formats for your website. And you can get exposure on multiple platforms with original content, depending on what that content is. I just want to give you an example. We have an allergist that we work with, and on a seasonal basis, he will put together an article for the season on how to, just tips about taking care of your health during ragwood. Ragwood? That's not right, is it? Uh, allergy season.
Ragweed.
Ragweed. Thank you, somebody. Ragweed season. And those articles are coveted. You should see the appreciation that is shown on social media when those tips come out, because that is what Kristen was talking about, relevant content. It also can improve your search engine ranking if you have your content on your website, or if it appears on someone else's site, for instance. So that can help quite a bit. And if you can get your article published, well, that really helps with third-party validation. So many places you can use that article, multi-purpose it. Make sure to send out a link on LinkedIn, letting people know you've written this article, connect it back to your website. It's driving people to your site. And it's also a great way to pitch if you go to the press and say, so-and-so has just done an article on this subject and would be happy to provide their perspective on your TV show, or as a quote in your article. We suggest try to get an article or a blog post per quarter for starters, just to keep you moving. It also helps you get back to your messaging when you write an article. It's a little bit of work, but well worth it. Now, if you're now going to go out to the news media, you have to think about what counts as news. We really suggest that you keep an eye on what's trending in the news, and how does your company coincide with the trending news. I'm going to go right back to our allergist and give you an example of something that just worked out really very, very well. You know, unfortunately, with the Canadian wildfires, there's quite a bit of difficulty going down the eastern seaboard with the air quality. Our allergist was able to immediately provide tips on what people should do to make sure they protect their health, not only short term, but long term, especially for those who have asthma, and how children might suffer from a long term effect and be more prone to asthma. Well, this was very important information and very newsworthy. And so we presented it to the TV producers, which we had on our contact list that we suggested you produce first thing. But we were able to reach out to them and immediately have him appear on television to provide that valuable information. So think about trending news. It might have to do with food. It might have to be, if you're a wedding planner, it's wedding season. So you're going to get out there with that trending news, get ahead of it, and send a note to that reporter or to that producer. Major announcements or events that are happening that are interesting about your business, a brand new company that works once. Typically, the news doesn't want to cover anniversaries, but if you're new, well, of course, that's information that's going to be of interest. Position yourself as a media resource. Perhaps you don't have anything right now, but it might make sense to send a nice email, quick and short, that says, what expert perspective can you provide to people? If you're that wedding planner, it might be decor that's in this season, the colors that are in this season for bridesmaids' dresses. If you're a restaurateur, you might be talking about having more sustainable menus and having foods that are healthy. Whatever it is that you know best, let them know what your perspective is. And that way you'll be top of mind if that subject comes up. Writing a letter to the editor or an opinion piece is also a great way to get known. And then a byline article. You can actually go out to your local newspaper, let them know what your idea is for an article. And sometimes they'll say, yes, we would like you to write 750 words on that. You won't get paid for that, but you will get a byline, and you can't be salesy with it. But just having that information from you and your company really gives you some third-party validation. And a reminder, we were talking about an editorial calendar for your social posts. Most TV and publications have editorial calendars a year in advance. It's usually for their advertising clients so that they know where they want an advertisement to fall. But you can use it to see what the focus is going to be that month. So maybe their focus is back to school or real estate or top lawyers. You'll know well in advance to pitch your story idea to coincide with that month. Media kits are important to have, but not as important as they used to be because so much is available now on your website. But you may want to have prepped in advance your first of all, your current press release, of course, but have a fact sheet or a brief history sheet, one page only, that has all the relevant facts about your company. When you were formed, how many people do you have, your philosophy, have your website and social media links on that fact sheet. And then if you have video links, maybe a URL to take them right to YouTube. You might want a listing of the titles and people who might be named in the story. That would be your leadership. And that can all be on one sheet of paper. That can be something that's online. It can be digital. And then if you have a previous press release that's relevant, you can also share that, your business card or contact information, and any links to images that you want to share for a particular press story. When you share a link to a press story to a reporter, make sure that you have identified who's in the image, what their title is, what their role is, and left to right. That question's going to come up, so you might as well send it all in a neat package when you send it to a reporter. And if that image was taken by a photographer, make sure to use their credentials so that they get attribution if that photo is used. A quick reminder of photos. Whenever you're using them on social media or on your website, you can purchase photos, for instance, from iStock Photo or Shutterstock. There are many, many sources for very low fee photos that don't need attribution. Be very careful never to use a photo off of a website and use it in social or on your website, because you can get in copyright trouble. And there are, as Kristen had mentioned earlier, there are trolls out there looking for just that opportunity to say, copyright infringement, you owe me money. So be very careful with the photos you use. We keep a log of all the photos that we purchase. If you are fortunate enough to get an interview, here are just a couple tips. And if you ever get called by a reporter, if you're ready for the interview, fine. But if you're asked to go on the record for something and you need some time, you can always ask, excuse me, may I schedule that? But very shortly thereafter, but just so you can get your thoughts together. You can ask for the questions in advance as well. And then plan your key messages and the key points that you want to make. That means go back to those 2 or 3 key messages we talked about in the beginning and make sure you get those points made in the interview. You can weave them into almost any answer. And if you aren't asked about them, offer them up anyway. If this is going to be an interview that's virtual on Zoom or even on the phone, then have your notes in front of you. It's fine to have the notes that you want to say so that you feel prepared. And remember that nothing is off the record. From the moment you say hello to the reporter to the moment you say goodbye, anything you say might influence how that article comes out. So think about that. Very cordial, but don't go off on a tangent. Stick to concise points that you really want to show up in that article. The superfluous stuff can also show up, so no need to add the superfluous color. If you don't know the answer, just say, hey, I'll get back to you on that, and then follow up promptly. And then you can ask when it's going to appear. And by all means, after it appears, make sure to sort of multi-purpose that, multiply the results. You can, you'll get X amount of people that might actually see you on TV, which is great, or read that article, but you're going to get a whole lot more leverage out of that article if you multiply the results. That means send out an email to your colleagues, to your clients, to your prospects, or include it in an e-blast or your newsletter, or both the email and the newsletter. On your social platforms, make sure to link to it. Make sure to tag the reporter or tag that outlet to make sure that you're showing appreciation to them for sharing your story. And then you can encourage sharing only to people that really know you well, but it doesn't hurt to say, hey, will you share this story? Will you like it and share it? You can always recommend to employees to do that. You don't want that to make a task where they have to do that as part of their job, but you can always recommend that if you want to. Make sure you put your tags on it, hashtags, and then if it's a really great piece, go ahead and boost it. That's where you want to spend a little bit of budget and boost something that's terrific like that.
Ellen, we do have a question in the chat.
Oh, yes.
A good
Yeah.
question. When does one need to get permission to use photographs of people for promotional materials?
Typically, if you're at an event that is in a public event and they are in the background, it's not going to be a problem. But say you go to a trade show, which we've done before. We ask, may we take your picture? Then we get their name. Sometimes we'll even take a form with us. So if you're going to be at an event where you're going to be wanting to take pictures, you will need to ask permission if you're going to focus on them. But if they're at a public event, most public events already have it posted that you will be on camera. So if they're in the background, it's okay. If you want to ask in your chat a follow-up question on that, because that might not have explained everything that you wanted. If it's in a company, then of course you do need to have permission from your personnel to have a picture. If you have a client, you want to ask. And if you want to put a picture up on your website or even a testimonial on your website, you're going to want to send them a note and ask for permission. It doesn't have to be formal as long as you have that response that they're saying it's okay to put their company logo on, their own testimonial, and of course, if there's any image of them, you'll want to ask. So I always err on asking too much. And of course, if it's a photo that you're using that is by any photographer, you'll ask permission if you can use that as well. I'll continue on awards, but if there's a follow-up question, let's hit it right after the awards.
There is you want to wait
yeah.
for the follow-up question?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are there different rules for children, even if they're in the background?
If their background and you are able to, at that time, identify them, I would ask. If you're taking that picture, you know that they're in the background. So absolutely ask. Again, at a large event where they're not the main focus, it should not be a problem. But we really shy away from getting any children in pictures if possible. Now, I will say, for instance, we do a lot of work with Girl Scouts, for instance. We ask always in advance, have they written a release? 100% have a release, or they'll say, these 3 children have not signed a release, so they may not be in photos. So please shy away from getting children in any photos unless you have checked the release, or if you're in an organization where they've already signed a release. If you can't tell who they are, absolutely fine. But if you're the one taking the picture, you'll know if you have children in there. Does that cover what we think that we're looking for?
I'll keep you posted if anything else, any follow-up
Okay.
questions come through the chat.
Thank you. I think that's a really relevant question to ask. Same goes with adults, though, of course, with the permissions, but you do have to be careful, children under 18. So a valuable way to build your bio or your resume, and then on your LinkedIn profile, any kind of publicity that you're doing on your website or even your email tag is getting an award that's relevant to what you do. You might sort of shy away from awards. Oh, are they really necessary? But your competitors are participating and they're doing so robustly. So your clients do appreciate when they see, oh, look, my dock has been the top dock on the main line for 5 years straight. This restaurant has won 6 of the best of Bucks County. So people do look at this. It does take some time, but it's not that hard and it's not very expensive. Sometimes they're free, and it's okay to ask someone to nominate you. Now, you also can nominate yourself, and there is no shame in doing that. We suggest you choose 1 or 2 awards per year that are an ideal fit for your field. So I'm going to turn this over to, actually, I'll do the first one and then I'll let you do the second page, Kristen. We want to leave you with a marketing opportunities checklist. And so I'm going to go through this very quickly as we wind up. First, you want to create those messaging points, who you are, what you do, why you're relevant in 3 sentences. We say boilerplate, that's just a little paragraph about your company that you can put at the end of every press release that says who you are, what you do, and why you're relevant. Then keep your branding consistent across all your platforms. Create your media list. Submit press releases or pitch a story. Here's something you may forget. Update your outgoing phone messages, your cell phone and your office phone to reflect your branding. Active members of a chamber of commerce or perhaps a committee on a professional organization. Have your team members serve on boards of community organizations if you can. Sponsor events that really target your audience. Participate and build your ratings on online directories or your chamber directories. And then I'll let Kristen complete our marketing opportunities checklist.
Keep that website up to date. Add case studies, testimonials when you have them. Definitely want to add video when you have it. Doesn't have to be elaborate. Just look fancy and snazzy looking. Can be on your cell phone. That's fine as well. Write articles and blog posts just a few times a year. I know we said once a quarter. Let's start with twice a year if you're feeling intimidated. Post regularly to social media. This is important. At least once a week. Really focus on that. Participate in 1 or 2 awards a year if you can. Might take a while to win one, but you just keep plugging away at it. Distribute that e-newsletter on a nice editorial calendar. Hold promotional events, and then consider a speaking engagement every now and then. This qualifies as mine, I think.
Yes, you're off the hook.
Yeah.
Well, we want to thank everyone very much for participating. I'm going to turn this back to Diana if there are any other questions. And of course, if there are questions later, we'll get you by email as well. Diana, thank you so much to you and your team.
Thank you. Any last questions from our group? And please know that we will distribute the presentation via email to all the registrants as well. Okay, well, thank you for the informative presentation, Ellen and Kristen. Hi, everyone. I'm Diana Crowley, Assistant Director of Workforce and Economic Development, and I'm pleased to announce the winners of our opt-in drawing for free customized marketing consultation with NouSoma Communications. If you opted into the drawing, your entry has been time-stamped and assigned a sequential number during registration. The randomizer tool will now select 5 winners represented by their assigned number. Let's take a look at the winners list together. I think it snuck away. Okay, the winning numbers are 37, 11, 17, 13, and 15. And Andrea, you'll share with us who that corresponds to, correct?
That is correct. So our first winner is number 37, and that corresponds to Mark Heifreiter from Phoenix Telecommunications, Inc. And for our next number, 11, that is Karen Graff from the Pendel Mental Health Center. Number 17 is Doug Edge from Surface Experts of Northeast Philadelphia. Number 13 is Michael Herrera of the Upper Bucks County Technical School. And finally, number 15 is Diane Corso from Mica Revolution.
Thank you, Andrea. So congratulations to our winning recipients. This week, please look for an email with details describing the next step to schedule an introductory meeting with Ellen and Kristen to set up your marketing consultation. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.